नमो ओं विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I hope all you are doing well in your spiritual life. Today we will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 2. Yesterday we read Text 1. Today we'll be reading Text 2. So before we start, let's pray. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृतं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततं जयमुदीरये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So let's begin together. Please listen very carefully. This is very important sloka. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1 and Text 2. Dharma Prajjita Kaitava Tra Parama Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedam Vastum Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedam Vastum Tra Vastu Sivadam Tapa Tranaya Moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kingba Parai Ishvara Shadva Hridi Avaruddhate Tra Kritivhi Shushushubi Tatshanat Tatshanat. Okay, this is a Sanskrit sloka. Again, I will read once again. Dharma prajjita kaitava tra parama nirmatsaranam satam vidyaya satam vidyang vastum tra vastu sivadam tapa trinaya moolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kingba Paray Ishvara Shadya Hridaya Avaruddhate Kritivhi Shushrushubhi Tatshanat. This is a sloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, text 2. Synonym: Dharma. Dharma means religiosity. Prajjita. Prajjita means completely rejected. Kaitava. Kaitava means covered by fruitive intention. Kaitava, covered by fruitive intention. Atra, herein. Parama, the highest. Nirmatsaranam, of the 100% pure in heart. Satam, devotee. Vedyam, understandable. Vastuvam, factual. Atra, herein. Vastu, substance. Shivadam, well-being. Tapatraya, threefold misery. Unmulam, cause uprooted of. Srimad, beautiful. Bhagavate, the Bhagavat Purana. Mahamuni, the greatest sage, Vyasdeva. Krite, having compiled. Kim, what is. Va, the need. Parya, others. Ishvara, The Supreme Lord, Shadhya at once, Hridaya, Hridi, within the heart, Avaruddha, becomes compact, Tra, herein, Kritibhi, by the pious man, Sushru, Shubhi, by culture, Tatshanat, without delay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Completely rejecting all religious activity, completely rejecting all religious activity which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana profound the highest truth which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold misery. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great saga Vyasdeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hear the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Very important. Completely rejecting all religious activity which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana profound the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is a reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth approved the threefold misery. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasdeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for realization, God realization, which is need what is the need of any other scriptures? As soon as one attentively and submissively hear the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Purport. Religion includes four primary subjects, namely pious activity, economic development, satisfaction of senses, and finally liberation from material bondage. A religious life is a barbarous condition. Indeed, human life begins when religion begin. Eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating are the four principles of animal life. These are the common both animal and human being, but religion is an extra function of the human being. Without religion, human life is no better than animal life. Therefore, in human society, there are some form of religion which aims at self-realization and which makes reference to man eternal relationship with God. In lower stage of human civilization, there is always competition to lord it over the material nature, or in other words, there is a continuous rivalry to satisfy the senses. Driven by such consciousness, men turn to religion. He thus perform pious activity or religious function in order to gain something material. But if such material gain are obtained in other way, so-called religion is neglected. This is the situation in modern civilization. Man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, and temple are now practically vacant. Men are more interested in factory, shop, cinema than the religious place, which were erected by the forefather. This practically this practically proved that religion is performed for more economic gain. Economic gain are needed for sense gratification. Often when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he talked to salvation and tried to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different type of sense gratification. In the Vedas, the above mentioned four activity are prescribed by regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotee of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there is a keen competition between animal, men and men, community and community, nation and nation. But the devotee of the Lord rise above such competition. They do not compete with the materialistic because they are on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. Such transcendentalists are non envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is a competition. But the transcendental devotee of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wisher to everyone, and they strive to establish a completeness society with a God in the center. The contemporary socialist conception of a competitionless society is artificial because in the socialist state there is a competition for the post of dictator. From the point of view of the Veda or from the point of view of the common human activity, sense gratification is the basis of material life. There are three parts mentioned in the Veda. One involves fruitive activity to gain promotion to better planet. Another involves worshipping the different demigod for promotion to planet of demigod. And another involve realizing the absolute truth and impersonal feature and his impersonal feature and becoming one with him. Impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature. And above this, the personal feature of absolute truth or Bhagavan. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is the higher than impersonalist literature and higher than the Jnana Kanda division of the Veda. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division and even higher than Upasana Kanda division because it recommends the worship of Supreme Personality Godhead Lord Sri Krishna. In Karma Kanda, there is a competition to reach heavenly planet for better sense gratification, and there is a similar competition in the Gyan Kanda and Upasana Kanda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all category. For Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the category. The substance is absolute truth. The supreme Lord, and all emanation are relative form of energy. Nothing is apart from the substance, but the same time the energy are the different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgate this simultaneously one and different philosophy in the Vedanta Sutra, which begin with Janmadasya Sutra. Nothing is apart from substance, but at the same time the energy are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgate this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with Janmadasya Sutra. This knowledge that the energy of the Lord simultaneously one with and the different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculator attempt to establish energy as absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conception of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Developer of the development of this transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different lead one lead leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold misery. The threefold misery are those misery which arise from the mind and body, those misery inflicted by the other living beings, and three, those misery arise from the natural catastrophe over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begin with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute, and at the same time the eternal position of the servant of the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely think himself the lord of all he survey, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold misery of life. As soon as one come to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once become free from all misery. As long as one living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately free from the material encumbrance. Over and above this, Srimad Bhagavatam is a personal commentation of the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasdeva. It was written in the maturity of his spiritual life, though the mercy of through the mercy of Narada. Sri Vyasdeva is the authorized incarnation of Narayana, the personality Godhead. Therefore, there is no question as to his authority. He is the author of all the Vedic literature, yet he recommended the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others. In other Purana, there are the different methods set forth by which one can worship the demigod, but the Bhagavatam only the Supreme Lord is mentioned. Now, the Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigod are the different part of that body. Consequently, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, one does not need to worship the demigod. The Supreme Lord is become fixed in the heart of the devotee immediately. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended the Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Purana and distinguished it from all other Puranas. The proper method for receiving the transcendental message is to hear it submissively. A challenging attitude cannot help one realize this transcendental message. One particular word is used herein for proper guidance. This is this word is susrushu. One must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. This desire is sincerely here is the first qualification. This is very important. This word is susrushu. One must be anxious to hear transcendental message. The desire to sincerely hear is the first qualification. Less fortunate person are not at all interested in hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. Less fortunate person are not at all interested in hearing this Srimad Bhagavatam. The process is simple, but the application is difficult. Unfortunately, people find enough time to hear idle social and political conversation. But when invited to attend a meeting of devotee to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, they suddenly become reluctant. Sometime professional reader of Bhagavatam immediately plunge into a confidential topic of the pastime of the Supreme Lord, which they seemingly interest as a sex literature. Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning. Those who are fit to assimilate this work are mentioned in this sloka. One become qualified to hear Srimad Bhagavatam after many pious deeds. The intelligent person with thoughtful discretion can be assured by the great Shaka Vyasdeva that can be realized by the Supreme Personality directly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Without undergoing without undergoing the different stage of realization set forth in the Veda, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahansa simply by agreeing to receive this message. Without undergoing a different stage of realization set forth in the Veda, one can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahamsa simply by agreeing to receive this message. So here we concluded a reading of Bhaktivedanta Purport for the day from Srimad Bhagavatam. I hope all you have understood. This is very simply way Prabhupada has trying to explain. Now let's jump to it inside. We have made a separate video and audio presentation for you, and we are attaching both of this presentation with the original video. So please listen till the end. You will get the better understanding, I hope. And in some places, I have mispronounced in both English and Sanskrit word. Please forgive me for that. And thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Today, we're going to zero in on just a single, really profound verse from an ancient text called the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, why just one verse? Well, because it makes a claim that is so radical, so bold, it basically draws a line in the sand between itself and almost every other scripture out there. It's not just another path, it claims to be the complete solution. And to even begin to understand that, we first have to see how it defines what it even means to be human. So, before we can unpack that huge claim, we have to start with the foundation. The text starts with the absolute basics, drawing a very, very clear line between our life and the life of, well, any other creature in the animal kingdom. So what is it? What's that fundamental difference? The entire argument we're about to explore is built on the answer to this one question. And believe me, the answer is the key to everything that follows. The source lays out a really simple but profound distinction. It says, look, we share 4 basic drives with animals: eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. That's just part of having a body, right? But humans have this extra function, and that special function is religion, this drive for self-realization, for understanding our connection to the divine. The text argues that without this pursuit, human life is really no better than animal life. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. The text immediately pivots to a huge problem. See, it's not enough to just have religion. The way most of us actually approach this extra function is, according to this source, deeply, deeply flawed. And this is the critical question it poses. What if all our pious activities, our prayers, our rituals, what if they're completely missing the point? The source suggests that a lot of what we call religion is actually a trap, one that keeps us stuck in the very cycle of problems we're trying to escape. The text even has a specific name for this flawed approach: Kaitava Dharma. It basically means materially motivated religion. Think of it as a kind of transactional spirituality. Hey, I'll be good, I'll go to the temple, I'll pray so that I can get a better job or good health or that promotion I've been wanting. It's using spiritual practices to get material stuff. So what's the result of this kind of thinking? Well, when religion just becomes another tool to get ahead in the world, it doesn't bring peace. No way. Instead, it just fans the flames of competition, rivalry, and of course, envy. It just becomes another arena for that never-ending chase for sense gratification, only this time it's got a pious-looking label slapped on it. And this, according to the source, is the ultimate failure of Kaitava Dharma. It's completely powerless to solve what the text calls the threefold miseries of life. These are the miseries that come from our own mind and body, like sickness and anxiety, the miseries inflicted on us by other living beings, and finally, the miseries from big natural disasters that we have absolutely no control over. This whole transactional approach, it argues, can't even begin to touch these fundamental problems. Okay, so if that's the problem, what on earth is the solution? This is exactly where the Srimad Bhagavatam steps forward. It claims to be a totally different category of spiritual text, one that was designed specifically to fix the failures of materially motivated religion. And here it is, the core claim, right in this powerful quote. The text straight up says it's sufficient in itself for God realization. Whoa! That's not a claim to be a helpful guide or one path among many. It's a claim of total completeness. The source is basically asking, if this one text can deliver the ultimate goal all by itself, what's the need for anything else?
And who is this message for? Well, the text is very specific about its target audience, the Nir Matsaranam. This is a word for those who are completely non-envious, the 100% pure in heart. It's for people who are genuinely fed up with the competition and the rivalry of the material world and are really looking for a truth that's beyond all of that. So how can one book possibly make such a monumental claim? Well, the answer is buried in its very unique philosophy, its perspective on the nature of reality itself. It gives us a framework that completely reframes everything. You see, the source explains that the absolute truth can be understood in 3 stages, kind of like climbing a ladder. At the base, you have the impersonal, all-pervading energy called Brahman. A step up from that is a more localized understanding, the Paramatma, or the supersoul, that's present in everyone's heart. But the highest, most complete realization, and this is what our text focuses on, is Bhagavan, the personal feature of the absolute truth. Now, to explain this relationship, the text presents a really sophisticated philosophy. It's called simultaneously one and different. I know, it sounds a little heady, but stick with me. It just means that everything we see, the whole of creation, is an energy of the absolute. So in that way, it's one with the source. But it's also, at the same time, different from the source. Think of it like this. Sunshine is the energy of the sun. It's one with the sun, but it's also different from the sun planet itself, right? This one idea resolves so many philosophical debates. And here is the big payoff. This is the aha moment. When you truly factually get this principle, you realize your actual position. You're not the master of everything, constantly struggling to control your little corner of the world. Instead, you're an eternal part of the whole, a transcendental servant. The source claims that this single shift in consciousness, from seeing yourself as the master to seeing yourself as the servant, is the thing that immediately uproots all those threefold miseries we talked about. Okay, so we've got the problem, the proposed solution, and the whole philosophy behind it. But how does a person actually realize this truth? How do you make it real? The text is super specific about the method you have to follow. I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? It's one thing to talk about all this high-minded philosophy, but what do you actually have to do to experience this freedom from misery for yourself? The text gives a one-word answer for the first qualification, and it's probably not what you'd expect. The word is shushrushu. It means a sincere desire to hear. See, it's not about being some great scholar or a fiery debater who's ready to challenge every single point. The number one qualification is humility and an earnest, almost anxious desire to just hear the message submissively with an open heart. And that simple method comes with an absolutely incredible promise. The verse ends by saying that as soon as a person hears this message attentively and submissively, the result is direct and immediate. The Supreme Lord, that highest truth, becomes established right there, inside their heart. No complicated rituals, no waiting around for another lifetime. The transformation starts just by sincere hearing. So we're left with this final, powerful question. The Bhagavatam doesn't just present itself as a helpful book or one option among many. It makes the really audacious claim that it is complete and totally sufficient in itself for solving the deepest, most fundamental problems of our existence. I mean, what does it really mean for any work to claim that? That's a thought to sit with.
Now we completed the video presentation. Let's begin with audio podcast.
Okay, imagine this. A single ancient text that just comes right out and says, look, all other spiritual paths, they're secondary. And it promises, immediate profound realization just by listening.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're diving deep into the Bhagavata Purana, highest truth for pure hearts. It's a text that makes some, truly radical claims about truth, purpose, reality itself.
It really does.
So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important insights, get a handle on its core message, and see, how this unique perspective might offer you some surprising clarity, especially if you're trying to grasp complex ideas quickly without getting totally bogged down.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And the Bhagavata Purana, or Bhagavatam as people often call it, it doesn't just present itself as, another scripture. It claims to be something quite distinct right from the opening lines.
Distinct how?
Well, a key thing is its really uncompromising declaration. It says it completely rejects all religious activities which are materially motivated. That's a strong start.
Wow. Okay. Completely rejects them.
And instead, it propounds what it calls the highest truth.
That is a radical declaration to open with. I mean, for a lot of people, religion is tied to seeking tangible benefits or maybe just comfort, security, that kind of thing.
Right.
So how does the text sort of justify that stance? And what is this highest truth it talks about that's supposed to be so exclusive?
It defines it as, let me get your phrasing, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. And it promises that just grasping this truth, it uproots the threefold miseries.
The threefold miseries, we'll probably come back to those.
We will. But the fascinating part, I think, is the claim about how this happens.
Yeah.
It says merely hearing the message, if you do it correctly, can have an immediate, profound effect.
It's just hearing it.
Yeah, it suggests the quality of our attention, how we really listen, is as transformative as, say, performing some ritual or action. Really challenges our modern tendency to just skim, dismiss, wants a deeper engagement.
That's profound. And it gets even more interesting because the text basically says it's not just another perspective, it's a complete path all by itself.
Exactly. The Bhagavata Pura states it's sufficient in itself for God realization.
Sufficient in itself.
And then it asks pretty boldly, what is the need of any other scripture?
Okay, so it's really laying down a marker there.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And if you connect that to the bigger picture, this isn't just about intellectual understanding. It's talking about an immediate transformative experience.
Through that listening you mentioned.
Through that specific kind of engagement, yes. That deep, attentive listening. The text actually promises that as soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, well then, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Right there. Immediately.
It suggests a direct, powerful shift in consciousness. The text itself offers not just information, but a direct pathway to the goal, maybe bypassing other routes that might be more.
That's a huge claim, immediate transformation. But okay, before we get deeper into how, the text seems to step back and redefine religion itself, doesn't it? What it even means for humans.
It does. It sets the stage by talking about four main subjects of religion.
Mm-hmm.
You've got pious activities, economic development, sense satisfaction, and then liberation from material bondage.
The usual suspects, maybe?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But then it makes this key distinction. It points out that, eating, sleeping, fearing, mating, those are common to animals and humans. But religion is the extra function of the human being. That's the quote.
The extra function. Okay.
And this really prompts a question for you, the listener. How do you define the purpose of human life?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just those basic functions? This text gives a very specific answer. It elevates human existence beyond biology.
How so?
It says human life begins when religion begins, and its ultimate purpose, self-realization and establishing an eternal relationship with God.
Wow. And if you don't pursue that...
Well, the text is quite blunt. It claims that without religion, human life is no better than animal life.
That's pretty stark. It's not just trying to be provocative, though, is it? It seems like it's really emphasizing that unique capacity humans have, maybe even a responsibility that goes beyond just surviving.
Exactly. It's suggesting that if we only live for those basic biological functions, we're kind of missing the point of being human. We're neglecting that defining characteristic.
So it's saying our true potential lies in developing that extra function, the spiritual side.
That's the implication. Otherwise, if our lives are just governed by the same drives as animals, then from a purely spiritual view, the quality of our life isn't fundamentally different. It's a call to aim higher, basically.
Okay, so if religion is framed as that essential, why does the text then spend so much time criticizing how societies often neglect or misuse it? Seems a bit contradictory.
It does at first glance, but it's actually a core part of its argument. It's striking how this ancient text critiques what it sees, even then. It observes that in, quote, lower stages of human civilization, religion often gets twisted.
Twisted how?
It's used just for economic gains or for sense gratification, driven by, and this is a key phrase, competition to lord it over the material nature.
Huh. That sounds familiar.
It really does, doesn't it? What's amazing is how relevant this ancient critique feels today. The text observes that in modern civilization, where man is thriving economically, so at present he is not very interested in religion.
Ouch.
Yeah. It laments that churches, mosques, or temples are now practically vacant because people are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas.
That's a direct hit on modern priorities.
Yeah.
But then it goes even deeper, which I found fascinating. It says even things like seeking salvation or trying to become one with the Supreme Lord, even that can be just another form of sense gratification.
Right.
If the underlying reason is still about material comfort or just escaping suffering, that takes the critique to a whole different level.
It really does. Is it saying even our highest spiritual goals can be sort of tainted by selfish desires?
It seems to suggest that. It forces us to really examine our deepest motivations for anything we do, even things we think are purely spiritual. The text seems to argue that if the core desire is still about personal comfort or relief or getting some kind of elevated status, even a spiritual one, then yeah, the motivation is still rooted in a kind of self-centeredness, a subtle sense gratification.
It's a profound challenge, really, to look inside that deeply.
So, okay, given this pretty intense critique of, let's call it superficial or materially motivated religion, what's the alternative? What does the Bhagavatam actually offer as the genuine path forward? How do you get beyond those motivations?
Well, here it makes a really clear distinction from other Vedic texts. It acknowledges that, yes, the Vedas offer regulative ways for sense gratification. Things designed to channel those desires, prevent undue competition, keep society orderly.
Okay, so those have a place.
They have a function. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, is different. It's transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It's positioned as purely transcendental literature for a different purpose entirely.
And it suggests this transcendental path isn't necessarily for just anyone walking in off the street, right? It says it's understandable only by pure devotees who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. That sounds like a pretty high standard.
It does sound like a high bar, but it's key to the vision. The text paints a picture of the material world as basically constant competition. Keen competition between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. A struggle for dominance, for resource.
That's certainly one way to see the world.
But the devotees, it says, they rise above such competitions. They're on a different track, the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful.
And what characterizes them?
They're described as non-envious and pure in heart. And they're striving for something the text calls a competitionless society with God in the center.
A competitionless society. That's a powerful idea, almost utopian. But then the text immediately contrasts this vision with the contemporary socialists' conception of a competitionless society. It calls that socialist version artificial. Why artificial? What's the difference?
That's a great question. And it prompts us to think, can you really have true peace if that underlying drive to compete for control or status is still there? The Bhagavad Gita argues the socialist model is artificial because in the socialist state, there's competition for the post of dictator or, for power in general.
Ah, okay. So it's saying changing the external system isn't enough.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily change the internal competitive mindset. The Bhagavatam seems to be calling for a fundamental shift in consciousness itself. Individuals genuinely rising above envy, above the desire to dominate, not just suppressing it through rules. It's about a change of heart, fundamentally.
Yeah, right. Not just a change of government or economic structure.
Precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. The text also lays out a very specific hierarchy for understanding ultimate reality. This was really interesting. It says the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest.
Right.
Above that, there's something called the Paramatma feature, the localized aspect, maybe?
Yes, the super soul feature within the heart.
And then the highest is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. Why is this distinction so crucial for the Bhagavatam's whole message?
Well, it provides a lot of clarity on different spiritual paths and goals. The Srimad Bhagavatam, it explicitly states, gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature.
So it focuses on the personal aspect.
Yes, and because of that focus, it's presented as superior to what it calls impersonalist literatures, which might focus more on an undifferentiated oneness like Brahman.
And it doesn't stop there. It even says it's higher than the different sections or kuchas of the Vedas themselves, like the Janakacha for knowledge.
Right, the path of philosophical speculation.
The Karmakach for ritualistic actions.
Fruitive activities, seeking rewards.
And the Upasanakat for more traditional forms of worship.
Yes, often worship of various demigods.
So it's essentially claiming it surpasses paths focused purely on intellect or ritual or even standard worship by cutting straight to the personal essence. Is that the idea?
That's pretty much it. It claims that superiority specifically because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. It says from the Bhagavatam, you learn about the substance, the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and see how everything else, all emanations, are just relative forms of energy.
So it offers a complete picture.
A complete picture that, it argues, culminates in understanding and relating to that personal feature of the divine.
Okay, now this next concept feels like it tries to tie a lot of philosophical knots together. The text promotes this idea called the simultaneously one and different philosophy, Asinchapadapadatattva, is that right?
That's the Sanskrit term, yes. Asinchapadapadatattva. It takes it from the Vedanta Sutra.
And it basically says the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. And crucially, it says this isn't a contradiction. How does that work?
Well, this is really one of those aha moments in the text. It's a philosophical point, but one that's meant to directly impact your experience. By understanding this, it claims, you resolve the old problems, like the mental speculator's attempt to establish the energy as the absolute,
So people who think the creation is God, essentially.
or that there's ultimately only undifferentiated energy, yes. It also shows that simple conceptions of monism, just oneness, and dualism, just difference, are both imperfect views on their own.
Because the reality is both, simultaneously.
Simultaneously one and different. And the text claims that developing this transcendental consciousness, really internalizing this idea, leads immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries.
There they are again, the threefold miseries. So just to remind you, the listener, the text defines these as, first, miseries from our own mind and body, anxiety, illness, that stuff.
Right, ditatmika,
Second, those inflicted by other living beings, conflicts, pests, you name it.
gabotika,
And third, those from natural disasters, floods, earthquakes, etc.
adibhavika, yes.
So freedom from all of that, that's the promise tied to understanding this philosophy.
That's the profound claim. The shift happens when you truly understand your real position as transcendental servant to the absolute. Instead of falsely thinking, I am the Lord of all I survey.
That egoistic position.
Exactly. The text says service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. So it's moving from suffering to freedom by redefining your fundamental relationship with reality, from a mistaken master to a willing participant in the divine play, you could say.
Finding fulfillment in that true nature, not servitude in a negative sense.
Precisely. That's the idea.
Now, the text isn't exactly humble about its own place in the grand scheme of things, is it? It's presented as the absolute pinnacle of Vedic literature.
Not humble, no. But it gives specific reasons. It's described as Shri Vyasadeva's personal commentation on the Vedanta Sutra, written when he reached full spiritual maturity.
And Vyasadeva is considered the compiler of all the Vedas, right?
Yes, identified as an authorized incarnation of Naraya, the author or compiler of all other Vedic literatures. And yet, he himself recommends the study of Srimad Bhagavatam above all others.
That's quite the endorsement from the source himself.
It provides crucial context, positioning it as the culmination of all that prior wisdom, the most direct path.
And it highlights its unique focus, too, compared to other texts, like the other Puras.
Exactly. It notes that while other Puras might suggest different methods to worship the demigods, maybe for specific benefits or needs.
Like praying to one deity for wealth, another for health, etc.
Something like that. But the Bhagavatam, it says, mentions only the Supreme Lord. It uses this great analogy. The Supreme Lord is the total body, and the demigods are like the different parts.
Oh, okay. So if you nourish the whole body.
Right. If you worship the Supreme Lord, you do not need to worship the demigods separately. It's like watering the root of a tree. It nourishes everything automatically.
That makes sense. And it was endorsed later, too.
Yes, significantly. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, a major figure in the tradition, specifically recommended it as the spotless Buddha, Amala Buddhatsam, reinforcing its unique, untainted status.
Okay, so we have this text presented as uniquely powerful, the culmination of wisdom, the direct path. So how are we supposed to actually approach it? Just pick it up and read? Or is there a specific way?
There's a very specific way emphasized. The critical practice, the key, it says, is to hear it submissively.
Submissively, what does that mean exactly?
It highlights the Sanskrit word shuru, which means one must be anxious to hear this transcendental message. It's not passive submission, but an eager, sincere desire to receive.
So the desire to sincerely hear is the number one thing.
It's called the first qualification, and importantly, a challenging attitude cannot help.
Challenging attitude, like trying to pick it apart or find faults from the get-go.
Exactly. It suggests that kind of defensive or overly skeptical mindset blocks reception, which really highlights that the attitude you bring to learning is crucial. It's not about just intellectual muscle, but about genuine openness.
That's a big point, especially today, isn't it, in our often very critical, fast-paced world.
It is. And the text even notes these kinds of modern challenges. It says that, unfortunately, less fortunate persons are not at all interested. They find plenty of time for, idle social and political conversations, but become reluctant when it comes to hearing Bhagavatam.
Ouch again. It suggests our priorities might be skewed, keeping us from something valuable.
That's the implication. And it also gives practical advice.
Yeah.
The Bhagavatam is meant to be heard from the beginning, systematically.
Not just jumping into the juicy bits.
Right. It actually criticizes professional readers who might immediately plunge into the confidential topics, like the descriptions of Krishna's pastimes, and then misinterpret them, sometimes even as just, quote, sex literature.
Ah, taking things out of context.
Completely. It stresses sequential, foundational understanding, but the assurance is there. The intelligent person, using thoughtful discretion, can realize the Supreme Personality directly just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in this proper, submissive, eager way.
And the result.
They can be lifted immediately to the position of Paramahasa, which is a very elevated spiritual stage, like a supreme swan discerning truth from illusion. So again, it emphasizes that genuine openness and sincere desire might be more important starting points than just raw intellect or skepticism.
Wow. What an extraordinary deep dive we've had into the Bhagavata Purana, a text that really truly challenges so many of our basic ideas about religion, about purpose, even about reality.
It really does cover a lot of ground.
We've seen how it pushes for a path beyond just material goals, how it redefines being human by focusing on that unique spiritual capacity.
And how it offers that very specific personal understanding of the absolute truth.
And we explored its sharp critique of, well, superficial religion, and that fascinating simultaneously one and different philosophy.
Which it connects directly to finding freedom from those threefold miseries. It's a very comprehensive framework.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, listening right now? Maybe it prompts us to think. If this text suggests that simply hearing with a sincere, submissive desire can lead to such profound insight and freedom, what might happen if you applied that same kind of open, receptive listening to other challenging areas in your life?
That's a great point. Whether it's learning something totally new or trying to understand someone else's difficult perspective, or even just processing challenging news,
Right.
it raises that important question. How often do our own preconceived notions, maybe our competitive instincts, or just our desire for a quick fix, how often do they stop us from truly hearing a message, any message that might actually offer deeper insight or lasting benefit?
What profound truth might we be missing just because we're not really listening with that kind of openness? Definitely something for you to mull over. We really hope this deep dive into the Bhagavata Purana has given you not just some interesting information, but maybe a fresh perspective to take with you.